Hello, everyone, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 10th of April 2023. Oh dear, it's Gary here again. And firstly, let's start off positive, shall we? And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a very, do I say belated Happy Easter because this is still Easter Monday, or do I just say Happy Easter? I'm not 100% sure when I'm supposed to say it because Easter Sunday was yesterday, of course. But anyway, I start off with a bit of a positive because I think that's probably just about as positive as it's going to get for this week's show, I'm afraid. So let's get the heavy stuff out of the way. Just the one game, as you will know, this past week, and it was Saturday's, I guess it's fair to say, title-ending 3-2 defeat against that mob in a game that could and most likely should have brought us more than what we got. We definitely did not absolutely not deserve to lose a game, I didn't think, but for some utter incompetent refereeing and our own absolutely suicidal defending, we could have come away with a win, or at the very least a point. But of course the point wouldn't really have helped us, but to get something from the game would have been a wee bit of some sort of consolation anyway. But of course, we know what happened, and most certainly it wasn't very surprising when it comes to our team this season that after some very, very poor defensive lapses, which just seem to blight us, some timidness in attack, and as I mentioned, some refereeing challenges, let's just say, we come away with another not much we seem to be able to do about this with this current squad sort of defeat against them, and it's just so bloody frustrating, I have to say. So in summary, the big news prior to the game was the absence of Connor Goldson. Some rumours started to spread around on Friday night that his season was done, and you just don't know if that's some of that mob's fans trying to get a wee bit excitable, or just people sitting there with a couple of cans thinking how they can stir things up or whatever. But anyway, it was confirmed that he was out due to a hip injury, completely out of the squad. However, undeterred, we started the game really well, I thought, and put them under pressure from the off, which is typically what they do to us, isn't it? And we let then, I don't know how many minutes it was, like 5 or 6 or 7 or 9, whatever it was, minutes, but we let that, the scourge of Rangers right now, Kyogo, get too much space, and he scored what turned out to be an offside opener. So of course it was then correctly disallowed. But we just don't seem to have an answer for this guy for right now. We don't mark him properly. We don't mark him the way that we should mark him. And I can't imagine if football's that complicated that you can't figure out how to mark a guy who creates space for himself, who moves around, who probably does it quite quietly, and we don't have some sort of system that can seem to take care of him. That kind of baffles me a wee bit. Not a football coach, I'm not saying it would be easy, but for someone of Michael Beale's calibre, you would think that they would be able to work that out. So it was a bit of a taster of, unfortunately, what was to come, and I have to admit I kind of lost my rag a wee bit when that first went in, because it was just almost a carbon copy of the way that we seem to defend this guy. Anyway, then Alfie scores a perfectly good goal, chalked off for a, what do you want to call it, a phantom foul. And then they score the opener after our defence we really have no idea what we're doing or where they're going as soon as that mob start to pass it about a wee bit, and we end up basically nowhere and marking no one. And then Kyogo slams home the opener, a pretty decent finish to be fair at that. And then Tav slams home a worldly of a free kick just before half time, and I don't know, it really felt like they were scratching their heads a wee bit trying to figure out why we hadn't capitulated yet, because that's what we do. But that is not what Michael Beale and his team are about, and that's certainly not what he's instilled into the squad since he's come back. We then start the second half like lightning. It was brilliant, a brilliant start for the first 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of the second half, and really could have gone ahead had Alfie not kind of snapped so much at the shot and making it a wee bit of an easy save for Hart when the kind of defence, the Celtic defence, had kind of hit it off each other sort of thing, and he just put it in a spot that was a bit easy for him, probably a wee bit more time than he thought. And then up steps Ben Davies to start Skitter Saturday, is that what we want to call it? My God, a bit of a nothing ball comes into the box, and he doesn't do a great job at all of clearing it, realises that pretty quickly, which is good, and then I don't know what he was doing. Does he absolutely bottle it? Does he just fluff it? Does he take his eye off the ball? Does he close his eyes? I'm not sure, but completely and utterly missed times clearing the header and straight to their guy who taps it to Kyogo to slot home. Clinical finishing from these guys. They know exactly what to do in the right moment. That's a difference maker. And that's a key difference maker between both teams right now. But just an absolute abomination of a goal to lose. So weak. But we're not done there, as it turns out. John Souttar, who, I've been talking up a wee bit in the last few weeks in terms of progressing nicely, coming in, getting some minutes on the pitch, not getting injured again, like Roof seems to do, when he comes in and does a bit of a cameo appearance, has an absolute disaster of an attempted back pass to Alan McGregor that was possibly maybe at the right speed, but completely in the wrong direction, which ends up being a perfect pass for that 70s porn star lookalike guy of theirs to take it around easily, take it around McGregor and slot it home. Definitely not McGregor's fault. I thought he might have wanted to kind of dive at some point, but I think he realises at that point that the boy's got what he needs to be able to put it home. Just an Easter gift. Another Easter gift like no other. Now here's when it gets a wee bit fascinating though for me. This is when we normally completely fold, isn't it? I had the fear that we end up having a gesture red card where someone just decides to have a swinging boot at someone in a nothing area of the pitch and, loses the plot and just makes matters worse. But we just kept plugging away. And I don't know if that was through to coaching. I don't know if it was fluke. I would love to think it was through coaching and the coaching staff saying there's plenty of time to go. You're still in the game. Keep going. And keep going is what we did. We just kept plugging away, and then Borna Barisic puts in an absolutely incredible ball from the right. Yeah, from the right. I have no idea. I have no idea what he was doing over there. I don't know if it was some sort of tactic or he was just coming by from a corner. I have no clue. I kind of get lost in these games sometimes. But he puts in a brilliant cross, and Tav slams home a header to make it 3-2, and which coincides with his 100th competitive goal for Rangers, and gives us a bit of a lifeline. Now there's still about 12 minutes with extra time, probably about 15 minutes or so to go, maybe a bit more than that. It wasn't as bad as the League Cup final where you just never felt like it was coming. We had, 15, 20 minutes again, same idea in the League Cup final, but didn't make anything in the way of inroads into the goal to try and get ourselves into a position where we might get that equaliser, we might get an inspiration, and we might get an opportunity to take it to extra time and see where we go from there. It was a wee bit better than that. We did have some free kicks in their half that we should have done more damage with. We seemed to be a bit lackadaisical with those, just kind of everybody chill out, just jog up, get ready when you want to get ready. There wasn't quite that urgency that I would have loved to have seen, but in the balance of play, we never really truly threatened. Tav had a wee bit of a chance straight after he scored, but the boy was defending and it just hit off and went past the post. We had a free kick right at the death that I honestly thought Tav might have just taken and tried to do something bizarre to slam it home, because he was in such a rich vein of form at that point. But it was definitely in Borna Barisic's territory, and Borna just skied it, and that was that. A draw, as I mentioned earlier, wouldn't have done any good for us in the title race, but it would have been a decent result for us in terms of the balance of play and getting our just rewards for the effort and the endeavour that we put into the game. So positives, I think our overall play was much better, certainly much better than the last time we went there, and certainly much better than it was in the League Cup final. Michael Beale certainly seems to have learned from his mistakes in the League Cup final in terms of his tactical setup and what he was kind of trying or anticipating that the game would unfold like, and he really set the team up to win, I thought, and keep the ball and provide them with no space. I say keep the ball as much as possible and provide them no space and expose the obvious frailties in their ranks. Nico Raskin, I thought, played very, very well, as did Todd Cantwell, and I actually thought that Alfredo Morelos had one of his most effective games against them. I thought he was superb for the entire day and should have had his goal as testimony to that. But the main positives to see were the two fantastic goals, for me anyway, from captain, fantastic James Tavernier himself, taking him to the 100 goals for the club. And for a right back to be so prolific in terms of goals and assists is just absolutely incredible. It's brilliant, actually brilliant, and it's such a shame that well, they came in the biggest of games, they didn't come during a victory that we so desperately needed. So I don't know, that probably takes a wee bit of the polish off it for right now anyway. But James Tavernier is quite simply a machine, and I think we would all do well to kind of take a half a step back and appreciate the brilliance that we have with him while he's here and while he's at the top of his game. Sometimes a lot of times we don't get a chance to be objective in the moment because we're just busy being in at the moment, and it's not until afterwards that we can start to really sit down and realise and appreciate what we have when we have it, and he certainly comes into that category, as does Alan McGregor, who I didn't think really put a foot wrong the whole day. I had a wee bit of a debate with Hammy when the goal went in, and he was thinking it was McGregor's fault, but no way was that McGregor's fault. That was just a blind dumb pass by John Souttar that put the game out of our reach, unfortunately. And it was his defensive partners, Alan McGregor's that is, on the day that truly cost us the game, or certainly they were major contributors. I'll get to the referee watch in a second. That's probably why everybody would tune in this week, I imagine. So the negatives, the result, but not just the result, to be really, really honest, I really, truly hate when we end up talking about referees after a game. I can stomach to a point the bad defending, and boy was it bad, and this is more demonstrable of the calibre of player and their own mentality in situations of pressure. But when we talk about a refereeing performance that wasn't just bordering on cheating, it takes all the actual football enjoyment out of the conversation. I don't want to do that. That other mob do that. Always cheated, never defeated, and all that sort of thing. I hate when it has to come to this, but there are certain times when it has to come to this, and as I say, I will get to that in a wee bit. Other negatives were our decision making when attacking. I heard, I think it was on Heart and Hand, that between the Dundee United game, which was the previous game, and the game against that mob on the weekend, that we had 4 separate attacks where we outnumbered their defenders by at least one player and failed to get a shot on target with all 4. That's telling, and I'm sure it isn't lost to Michael Beale either. Another negative, Ryan Kent. I love him. I would like him to stay, but he had a day to forget, as did Malik Tillman, who should know by now what these games are all about. He has to be sharper and more switched on, as his more regular casual style in games means that he just gets completely overrun in the big games, and that's exactly what happens. He has to get better and has to adapt to the game, not the other way around. Ben Davies and John Souttar had absolute shocking mistakes and ultimately cost us the game, and both were abominations for different reasons, which is it's one of these dichotomies, isn't it? Because overall they defended relatively well, but they're not going to get remembered for the clearing headers or the positional play or marking a player out of an attack or anything like that. They're going to get remembered for their abominations, for the absolute errors in judgment and execution that they made. I mean, Davies' first clearance was stupid, and then I don't know what he did. Let's just say he bottled it for what should have just been a simple nod out header. And that was just embarrassing. That was embarrassing defending by a guy of supposedly his stature. And Souttar's stupidity, and one of those, I mentioned it before, the blind back passes to McGregor, which was just a perfect pass, like perfectly placed for their guy to go in around McGregor and slot home. It was just lazy. It's just slack and so costly. That was the error that cost us the game ultimately at the end of the day. And these guys will never, ever be able to forget these mistakes, and not just because of the consequence of the game. And let's be fair here, the league was likely already out of reach, but that's not to say that we don't want to be competitive. We don't want to beat them. We don't want to go 6 points behind them just to see what happens, because there's still a lot of football to be played. But they'll be remembered for 2 main reasons. 1, who it was against, and more importantly 2, because of the absolute stupidity of the mistake. It wasn't where they got caught on the wrong side of an attacker or lashed at it and it was an OG or some other kind of regular unfortunateness. No, it was because of their decision making, and their execution was an absolute disaster for us, and it cost us 2 goals in a 1-goal defeat. So you just don't get to make mistakes like that in such a big game against a team like that and expect not to be punished. And I'd like to say that these guys are better than that, but I actually don't know if that's true or not. And based on evidence from Saturday, the unequivocal answer is no, they're not better than that, to be dead honest, because that's the mistakes that they made and that's how they influenced the result. And I thought from another negatives perspective, Fashion Sakala and Tony Goals came on and it just didn't really do very much. Not their fault that we lost the game, but Sakala can have the odd moment of brilliance when he comes on. But ever since he talked up that mob before the League Cup final, he's kind of sank into some sort of polite oblivion or something like that. He hasn't really set the heather on fire at all. And Tony Goals just isn't a sub that comes on and does tremendously well for us. So he's definitely, I thought we had an absolute world beater at the beginning of the season, but Tony Goals, since he come back from injury, has been a shadow of the former guy. It seems like the team don't really know how to play him anymore, because of course when he was coming back into the team, that was the beginning of Michael Beale's reign, and it seems like he doesn't really know where he fits in and doesn't seem to get himself into the positions that he did before, and certainly hasn't got the goal return that he had at the beginning of the season. Again, absolutely not their fault. We lost the game, but just ineffectual from the bench. None of the subs caused any stir. Scott Wright and John Lundstrom and stuff like that. It's not a strong bench. So it's something that's going to really truly change the game for us. So that's the way that worked out. In terms of stats, we had 45% possession. So I did mention earlier we wanted to keep the ball. Our possession on previous games, I imagine, would probably be less. I don't know that for sure, to be dead honest. And we had 7 shots to their 8. So that's 7 shots in entirety to their 8. But here's the difference. We had 3 on target. They had 7 of their 8 shots on target. Shoot on target. You just never know what's going to happen. And we just seem to have an inability to do that. Okay, here we go. On to the referee watch. Right, I'm not going to overdo this part, as we all seen what happened. Kevin Clancy is a bad referee. He is a low-performing referee, and that's nothing new, and something that I've said on this pod a number of times before. But on Saturday, I don't think it was mistakes. It looks like plain and simple cheating to me, and not just for Alfie's goal. There were phantom fouls that he called spread throughout the game that very subtly broke up promising Rangers attacks. He did parts of his job by booking 4 of their players and giving us the odd attacking free kick, free kicks in their half, but his actual job was already done by then. He had already severely influenced the game by then. Now here's the kicker, and I'm with Michael Beale on this one. If you listen to Michael Beale's post-match press conference, in the heat of the battle, I can see why he was so quick. He so quickly blew for the Alfredo Morelos Johnson tussle, because he doesn't need any excuse to blow anything against Alfredo Morelos. He's proved that. But this is where VAR is supposed to help, and it was an absolute utter failure. And I believe Nick Walsh was the main referee on VAR, and he couldn't rule along with Kevin Clancy quick enough, could he? How many times have we seen VAR take an absolute age for a decision that everyone could see as an absolute no-brainer? Lots and lots of times is the answer. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. But on this occasion, it took next to no time. My understanding is it took less than 30 seconds for them to agree. Now, on one angle, there is maybe, and this is a big, giant, I am, feeling very generous because I'm off work today, maybe a case for a potential foul, but on every single other angle, it's so clearly Johnson, who's a little runt, by the way, trying to outmuscle Alfie, realising that he can't do it and just throwing himself down. Yet VAR didn't see it. VAR chose not to see it, and then the goal is ruled out. Incredible, absolutely disgusting performance by the refereeing team there. And then you see Alfie's header that was blocked in the second half, blocked by Ryan Jack. And Ryan Jack is just simply getting dry humped by their defender, who's getting dry humped by Joe Hart, who has his hands around Ryan Jack as well, and is getting his jersey pulled all over the place, as is Alfredo Morelos, by the way. So it should have been a clear and definite penalty there. Nothing. Where's the VAR check on that one again? If it's, and we know it's true now that Rangers were asking for clarification, and my understanding by the time we're recording early today, right now it's 10:37 a.m, And my understanding is that the SFA have written back to Rangers, who were asking for clarification of why that goal didn't stand and why VAR performed the way that they performed. I hope at the very least we get an apology, and at best Clancy gets banned from refereeing ever again, or at least banned from refereeing Rangers games. But then that doesn't help because he's just going to poorly referee other games, and it's going to influence games and points and where the league championship potentially might go as well. The guy just isn't good enough, and I'm sure as a person he is an okay person and he's not intending consciously to do what he's doing, but he has been influenced very expertly over the years to give them absolutely everything, and boy did he do a fantastic job of that on the weekend. So with all that said, he and his VAR brethren are getting a 1 out of 10 this week, and that's only because the rating that I give is between 1 and 10. If I could have given it a 0, he would have got a 0. He was pathetic, absolutely pathetic. So, with that result, we have 7 games to go and are now 12 points behind them. So that's it, done and dusted now, and it's just a matter of time as to when they're going to wrap it up, and that's just really, really unfortunate. 1 game in the league this week, and that's at home to St Mirren, who you will know are from the most wonderful town in Scotland, and that's Saturday the 15th of April with a 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That's 3 p.m. UK. The last time we played them, I actually think the last time we played them was Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's last game. I think that was the one just before the international break that was the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, and that was the 1-1 draw in the most beautiful town in Scotland of Paisley, with a late equaliser for us actually coming from James Tavernier. Then prior to that, we did pace them good and proper 4-0 at Ibrox back in October with 2 goals from Tony Goals and 1 apiece for James Tavernier and Fashion Sakala. So maybe James Tavernier is going to score another 1 or 2 or 3, whatever it's going to be on the weekend. I'll take it. And as I mentioned last week, that we already have a second place confirmed, so we need to be strategic now about what we've got going on. We have, 3 weeks or so, just less than 3 weeks, to the League Cup, the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden against them. So we need to keep players fresh, we need to keep them fit, and we need to keep them ticking along, of course, but we also have 7 games in the league or whatever it is to give us an opportunity to, I don't know, rid ourselves of the dead wood. That feels very, very harsh to say that for some great servants to the club, but to bleed in some of the youngsters and some of the periphery players that are in the first team squad and give them a bit of a go, a bit of a run out, maybe put some in the shop window, I don't know. So it's a little bit of a sticky one. If there was no semi-final to look forward to, we could just use the remainder of the season to get some players some game time in their legs, to give some other players a bit of a rest and a breather, and start to truly properly plan for next season. But we still have silverware to go for, and we want to stop that mob getting the treble as much as we can as well. And we play like we play on the weekend. We cut out the mistakes, and we have a different referee who's actually just going to referee what he sees, including the VAR team. Then we have a great chance in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. In terms of RTV, I didn't hear anything from anyone that there was any challenges around RTV. We had the perfect feed actually at the pin bar, but 2 of the TVs kept just going off and on for some reason, like just going black for a couple of seconds, and it just always felt like it was we were attacking. If it's not one thing, it's another. I don't know. But for shout-outs this week, nothing other than to just congratulate again Captain James Tavernier on his 100th goal for the club, and coming hot on the heels of Alan McGregor's 500th appearance for the club the week before. So, we're actually literally in the moment getting to witness history here, folks, and I'm privileged to be part of it. Back to what I was saying earlier, it's sometimes difficult to be aware of and objective with what's actually happening in the moment, or certainly in the thick of it, and as the season unfolds. And of course, yes, it's coming during a disappointing season, but it shouldn't take away from his achievement overall, and of course from Alan McGregor's achievement as well. So congratulations again to McGregor, as I mentioned last week, and absolute hearty congratulations to James Tavernier on his 100th goal. And I believe he's now in the top 20, top 19, 18, 17, something like that, in terms of scorers as well. So that's not to be sneezed at either. From a convention update, I can officially confirm it's 66 days and 9 weeks until Toronto Midtown host the biggest bash of the overseas Rangers calendar year, and it's something we're definitely looking forward to. Just a bit of an update from last week. We did send out our email to our email distribution list, which is almost 2,000 people on the email distribution list, to see if that would make some sort of material difference to our ticket sales, to our hotel uptake. I haven't heard from the hotel since we sent that out, as our main point of contact is on holiday right now. But in terms of ticket sales, there was no material difference at all. So we'll see how that pans out between this week and next week. But the main message from the email was, I guess I could say it now in the present tense, as we now have a week until deadline on the hotel room bookings after the 17th of April. After 1 week today, you will be very, very fortunate to get anything in the hotel at the price range that we've negotiated. We are planning to hand back rooms and event space as well, and that will also help us right size how many tickets we'll be selling for the event as well. So as I mentioned last week, the hotel bookings don't line up with the number of tickets sold. In the Greater Toronto area, there can be a wee bit of procrastination in terms of tickets to be sold, and people will just see how the season shakes out, kind of dust themselves down and figure out what they want to do in terms of the convention. We've seen this before. Certainly, our most recent example was in Windsor in 2019, so maybe that might happen, but you might miss out then as well, because once we start to right size the hotel room, the banquet space, and our general convention space, then we might be able to just say we have X amount of tickets left and that's it. And people who miss out will miss out. We're trying to do the things that are the fairest for the people that are as interested as they can be to come along and who are booking early. Such a strange year on this one. But anyway, another reminder that the Holiday and Flight Centre have their full packages up for sale for folks from the UK who have expressed an interest, and you go and see it, and go to attheconvention.com, and you'll get to see what they have to offer. And we have our 3 confirmed guests as well. Of course, I'll just keep mentioning that every week between now and then. We have Willie Henderson, Mark Haitley and Andy Gray, accompanied by Heart and Hand's very own David Edgar as our MC, who I know is very much looking forward to this as well. And everything else is out for sale. The football, the magazine, the Saturday excursion. There might be another Friday excursion, which won't be a paid excursion, but it might be a bit of a shopping trip. There are some local malls and stuff like that there for folks that are not familiar to the hotel area, and there might be something a wee bit organised on that as well. In terms of the magazine, as I mentioned before, we're really creeping up on deadline time now. It's kind of getting to squeaky bum time as it gets to that. So if you're intending on taking a magazine article, and if you have not expressed an interest, please get in touch with Andy Bennett and his team, and go from there and get yourself organised. The magazine's always a wonderful keepsake for everyone that's involved in that as well. And from another business perspective, I think I did mention last week that I will mention this every single week as we go forward, especially this week and probably next week as well. I'll try and do the pod a wee bit earlier next week as well. But one key part between now and next week, Monday the 17th of April, 1 week from today, is the deadline for anyone who has an interest in joining the NARSA executive. Every single position apart from president is up for grabs. If you go to narsa.ca/constitution, you will see the rules in there and what you need to do to get yourself nominated and seconded. You need to be a member in good standing of a NARSA club, and you need to have, ideally, you have some skills and abilities in the area that you're applying for, and not just a desire to come along and see how it goes. But it's a volunteer role, and you'll get out of it what you put in to it, so to speak. And we would love to certainly at least have a conversation. If you want to talk to me about it directly, as you will be working with me in some capacity as we go forward, I'd be more than happy to give you some time, and especially this week and coming up to the deadline. And what happens is, if you get a nomination and a second this week, then and no one else runs for that role, you will be voted in by acclamation at the AGM come the 17th of June. That's the way the Constitution is written. So if you know that you're the only person in, you have a formal nomination, a formal second, and you've gone through the appropriate admin channels to get that organised, then you will know 1 week from today, or most likely 1 week from tomorrow, that you are it and you are in, and then we can start to kind of plan for that as we go forward. If you decide to wait and see how it shakes out after next week, then it's a gamble to do that. It's a wee bit of a crapshoot to get that sort of tactic to work in your favour, because there might be other people interested come up to, and if you do it afterwards, you don't get voted in via acclamation. It will go straight up to and including the AGM in and of itself as well. So if you're genuinely interested, please don't wait. It's nice for everybody to know what we're doing, what's happening, and who we're going to be working with going forward. You have 1 week, and the exact same goes for constitutional changes as well. If you take a look at our constitution, there are things there that don't make sense, there are things that are outdated, there are things that are annoying, or things that are just materially holding us back, then please go take a peek, put together a bit of a proposal as to what you would reword it to, or delete, or add to, or whatever it's going to be, and then put that through with a nomination and a seconder as well. It's not something you can just do on your own. It has to be a nomination and a seconder from 2 different NARSA clubs as well. I'll mention that again next week, as I say, because there will still be time. It will be up to and including midnight Eastern Standard Time, which is where our Secretary, Sandra Hawthorne, is based. So we'll give it to midnight her time, and then we will see how it all shakes out when we all wake up on Tuesday morning. On the communications front, the big news from last week was the departure of now former chairman Douglas Park and the voting in of now new chairman John Bennett. And most of you, I imagine, will probably have already read it, but the club statement started with Douglas Park, who has been chairman of Rangers International Football Club plc for 3 years, has decided to step down from his role. The RIFC board unanimously agreed to install the current vice chairman John Bennett as the club's new chairman. And then in the article, both guys went on to provide a wee bit of their own commentary there. Mr. Park has been a massive supporter of the club as we worked our way through the rebuild, back in the earlier days of the rebuild and up to and including 55, and he was there as chairman, and he was there for our European final in Seville last year. So those are not insignificant, and the infrastructure that he's helped put into place, both on the business side and physically in the team as well, is not insignificant either. So on behalf of NARSA, I'd like to extend a genuine thank you to Mr. Park, and a huge congratulations and the best of luck to Mr. Bennett as well. It's always good to see things getting freshened up at the top, and we'll see where Mr. Bennett takes it. We didn't get the opportunity to speak with Hoggy again about his book. I know I'm sounding like a broken record on this one. The holiday weekend kind of seems to skew things a wee bit, but I'll actually message Hoggy straight after this and see if we can just do the interview anytime, and then we'll get that for next week's if we can. And I think that's about it. Yeah, finally on the comms front for this week, I think we might be in a position to do that Glasgow Rangers Nation podcast this week. Victoria was asking my availability for this week, so we'll see how that goes. If we get it out there, we will get it out there, if you know what I mean. And I wanted to finish off with just a pure observation, nothing to do with Rangers at all. But Leo and I were watching the Masters golf tournament over the weekend, and he was off sick, unfortunately, from school on Thursday, so we had it on literally all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Of course, it was a wee bit disrupted by the weather for folks that watched it, you will know that. And one thing that we noticed that we didn't even pay any attention to, it was just at the very, very end, as the final two were walking up to the final green, and the winner was going to come from the final two. There was only going to be one winner at that particular point anyway. But one thing that we just noticed between each other was that there were absolutely no mobile phones anywhere. Nobody was trying to capture history on their mobile phone. Nobody was taking selfies, as they're running along, or getting a position in the gallery or anything like that. So that's not a fluke, obviously, because based on today's day and age, everybody has a mobile phone out for every single thing to try and capture it, so that they can refer back to it at some point in the future and say, I was there. But we don't even get that at football these days. There's folks on their phones at half time during the game. You can bet during the game. They've updated Wi-Fi so that people can do a whole bunch of different things during the games as well. So it was just very, very refreshing. People were there. They were engaged, they were listening, they were participating, they were part of the overall experience. And I think for me, it was just a wee bit of a reminder. A lot of the times I'm on my phone, not so much now as I used to be when RTV was a wee bit more flaky, but I'm still on my phone, texting my pals during a game, or just making sure everything's okay, checking my email to see if anything's going on that we need to give attention to. So I'm going to try and do a wee bit more of the Masters thing going forward, that if you don't get a hold of me before the game, it's going to be half time before I respond, unless the game's absolutely dung and I've got a bit of free time in between it, and then you won't hear from me until the end of it as well. I'll try it, not with my closest and nearest and dearest, of course, but with anyone else. I think I'm going to try and take a wee breather. It was very, very refreshing. I probably sound like an old fart when I say that, but it was just something kind of cool Anyway, that'll do it for this week, my friends. I'm really sorry the result didn't go our way, but that's the way that it goes sometimes. As always, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very, very, very much for taking the time to listen. Please do share it with whomever you think might enjoy it. And until next week, the season definitely hasn't panned out the way we hope, but these lulls in our history make the highs all the more euphoric when they come to us, and hopefully that's going to be as soon as next season. I do have confidence in Michael Beale and the fact that he knows what he's doing, and I look forward to seeing what he's going to bring us as we all move forward in unison. So until next week, please do take care of yourself, enjoy the rest of your Easter Monday, and all the very best. Okay, cheerio.